Sometimes you just want to go full acro. Hey guys, welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. I'm Justin Davis, your host today. This is the Tero 120. This is the little brother to the 130. I want to say thank you to GearBest.com for sending us this for review and a little FPV basher session with it. This one has a lot of features about it that are very similar to the 130. You guys probably watched the video on our channel before and you saw the 130, how cool that was. I love that quad. This is definitely one of my favorites for this year. It goes to the field with me every time I go out to fly. So the 120 came out and I had to have one. So they did send me one and I got to go through it, set it up. I'm gonna show you how you should set yours up, and then we're going to take some flight time outside. But I'll get into the specs on this just a little bit. We won't go too far into it because I don't want to bore you guys to death. I want to show you some flight footage of how cool this guy is. So the Tero 120 has its shortcomings, but it also has major benefits, starting right away with the size and the performance of this one. So if you're looking for something that's super fast, fits in the palm of your hand, and definitely will impress your friends. The 120 is the one that will do that for sure. And it's made 2mm carbon fiber and seems to be fairly durable in the field during my testing. So I'll go ahead now and I'll show you a closer look at how I set mine up so you can set yours up, and I'll save you some time in the process of setting yours up because I did have to tweak a few things on here to get it to work properly. So I'm going to show you that coming up next. So here we have it, and sitting next to the big brother, the 130. Now, do I recommend the 120? Yes, I do. Do I recommend it over the 130? Not totally sure yet. I did get a full day yesterday to fly this one, and I saved all the flight footage to show you guys. Flight characteristics, they are very similar, these two. They have the same exact motors, the same exact prop size, the same exact ESCs, 6 amp ESCs on both of these. You just have a little less carbon frame and a little less real estate on this one to move your components around with and fitting things. Now, is that a drawback? Not exactly, because you can still fit everything you need to fit on this. They actually moved the VTX on the 120 to the front. So on the 130, it is up inside the frame, right in the top here. As you can see, that silver plate's kind of shining there. That's where the VTX is on the 130. Now on this one shortcoming is that it does stick out the front here. So if I can bring this in a little closer, you see this board right here, and then there's a wire that goes up here. That wire right there that sticks out around the front end of that bumper, that's the VTX antenna. So it comes up through the top here, and you're gonna have to do something to cover that up. Now what I would do most likely is take a piece of foam and put over top of it, and it'll act as a bumper. It'll also be lightweight and won't detract. So if I was gonna put a bunch of hot glue on here, that would be pretty heavy. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. What I would do is take a piece of soft foam that has sticky back and stick it over top of this to protect that in a forward crash. If you go in, you don't want to sever that wire. You probably could solder on a new one if you were pretty handy, but you won't have to worry about it if you just put a little soft bumper on there. The 130 doesn't have that, but since this is so very light, you're really not going to have to worry about severing that cable, I don't think. I crashed it into trees and had several hard crashes yesterday with this one, and I didn't have any problems breaking anything on it. Didn't even break a prop. I have nicked some props on here, but that's not a big deal at all. These black props, by the way, didn't come with it. But let's look at this. From the side, like I said, there's not a lot of real estate in here. What I did was I ordered myself an X4R FR Sky receiver, and I did a pinless setup. So that means that I soldered directly to the wires directly to the board, the receiver board. So it eliminates the pins coming off the back, which saves you tons of space. Now, could you still get a pinned version of this receiver in there? Yes, you can. You do have a little more room up forward, as you can see in here. So the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that these ESC wires are zip tied and held back from where, sticking out the side of the frame from where the props will hit them, because they will stick out the side and the props have minimal clearance between this frames. You can see here, bring it in a little closer. You see how close that is? You really have to tuck these wires as tight inside the frame as you can get them. Even on the back there, you can see those red and white wires there, just underneath where the props swing by. Now, the next thing is the antenna. Your antenna setup coming off the back. This is, originally I had them up front. I tried to get creative and I tried to put them off the front because I thought it would look pretty cool, but there is no clearance right here for the zip ties, because I use zip ties to bring my antennas up and a little bit of heat shrink here to hold them up and out of the way of the props. The next spot I tried them right here on the frame. That didn't work either because they were still catching. So I had to move them all the way to the back. So this, you know, this was about an hour playing around with where to put my antenna. So it might save you guys tons of time to go ahead and put them on the very back of the frame. That way you're totally clear of the props. Now the next thing is the battery wire. You can see here the battery wire is very close to the prop. So you're gonna have to put your battery on the bottom. On the 130, the battery can sit on top, no problem. But for this design, you can't run this up safely without getting it in the way of the prop. So what I do is I put the battery on the bottom and I take off the battery. So I sit it on a nice flat surface and take off the battery. Now it does have, in the package, it does have a battery carbon plate to protect the battery. You can put that underneath your battery as you take off on your battery. Not really needed in my opinion. I don't use it because a lot of times when you crash, you're crashing in this direction anyway in a forward motion. I've never really punctured any batteries flying them on the bottom. It's not a big deal, especially on these smaller micros. So battery placement down bottom, and then your 130, I had to remove the post on the side to get to the USB port, and I permanently removed that post so I could get to plug it into CleanFlight. On this one, they didn't put a post in the way, so you can get right into the USB port on the 120. So that's an advantage right away of the 120, that you have no problem getting access to that. Now the SBUS port is in the very back here. I believe it was on the right, on the far right. I have it plugged in. There's a diagram in here. If you use PPM, you can do that also. It's the middle port on the back of this flight controller. Plug in there and then come up to your receiver. But they recommended that you use SBUS on this. You're going to get a little less latency on that. Pro pilots will notice it, but amateur pilots probably won't notice the difference in lag between PPM and SBUS. So 4,000 kV motors, exactly the same as what we had before. Let's go ahead and I'll open up the box here, move the 130 out of the way. They give you two sets of props, and pay attention to this diagram. This is pretty important. This is your flight controller configuration, and it shows you where the ESCs come in, and it shows you where PPM plugs in the center, like I talked about here, and then over here on the right is SBUS for your SBUS receiver. Also has a spot for LED lights to plug into if you wanted to plug in some LEDs over here on the left, that you have a cord for that. It doesn't come with the box. On the back you have the exploded view. It just shows you sort of the layout where your battery is going to go and everything down here, and you run your strap up and around the top. Pretty simple there. It does come with a 300 milliwatt transmitter. video transmitter, which is really, really nice. As you see in some of the footage I'll show you guys coming up, this transmitter really does have a lot of range on it. I was chasing an FPV wing out in front of myself on a mountain yesterday, and it did really, really well as far as following that wing before I got to start to lose video transmission. This is the USB port that comes with it. The cable plugs into this little module here, and you plug it into your computer for clean flight. And like I said, the plug for USB port is right here on the side of your flight controller. Next up, you get some more wires. Now it did come with landing gear. I took those off. This is going to save you a little bit of weight. These are metal. They are pretty nice landing gear, but some of the batteries we put on here, they're going to be taller than that landing gear. So that landing gear to me isn't really necessary, just extra weight. So if you want landing gear, fine, leave it on there. But for me, I took mine off. They give you extra Velcro in here, and they give you 2 sets of props. So they give you orange and green props. And I have these black props on there. I thought they looked kind of fun. Here's the battery protector on the bottom. And I'm not going to use that. I'll probably make a keychain out of that because that's actually pretty cool. So that's all that's in the box, you guys. Now I'm going to hook this up to Clean Flight for you, and I'm going to show you some of the parameters that I use to set this up. And then I'll show you some flight footage. Just want to help a few guys out in Clean Flight that might need it. So here we go. Okay, so go ahead and download Clean Flight and open that up. Plug in your USB cable to the side of your flight controller here, and plug it into the little USB module. And go ahead and put that into the USB port on my computer. I'm going to set this guy to the side. Now I don't have it set on auto connect, so I'll go ahead and make sure the copter's sitting on a level surface. So I'll push connect here. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to check to see that your surfaces are correct. The way your gyro is facing, accelerometer should be in line with what you see here. If you tilt it forward, you get forward, left and right and back. Everything looks good there. It comes set up like that from the factory, so no big deal there. Now we're going to go down to configuration. We're going to go into the receiver mode. Now I'm using SBUS, so what I want to have checked there is RX serial based receiver, SpecSat, SBUS, SUMD. So make sure you have that selected here for your SBUS receiver, because otherwise the flight controller will not recognize it if it's set to RX PPM. Now if you're using PPM, you can set it to that and then select Spectrum 1024 or 2048 here, and then it will see your PPM receiver. But no problem using SBUS, and it's very nice that you can actually use an X4R on here. And the difference between that is the D4R2, which is an analog receiver, and the X4R is actually a digital receiver, so you're going to get a lot less latency and lag. So I have everything set up there. SBUS is checked. Once you do that, go ahead and save and reboot down here at the bottom right, and you're good there. So for my failsafe, what I did on my failsafe, and I do on all my copters if I fly in or around town, a lot of times I set them just to drop out of the air if I lose signal. And you also want to make sure that you set up that push down the little button on your receiver. After you set this and you save and reboot, take a tool and find the button on your receiver. I did cut away I wrapped it in heat shrink here, but I also cut away a spot so I could get a tool in there and press down that button so that I can set that up later. And the way you set up failsafe on the receiver itself is turn on everything, and then you hold down the button on your X4R receiver 1 to 2 seconds, and then release it, making sure that your throttle is in the down position all the way down, and then it will take that throttle position if it goes into failsafe, so that it knows that it goes to 0%. And in Clean Flight, it also does that here, so it will drop. But you want to bench test this without the props on to make sure that your failsafe is set up before you go out and fly it for the first time, because you don't want to have a flyaway. If this thing, the failsafe is not set up correctly, it could remember the last throttle value and it could actually fly away on you. So it could be stuck at 75% throttle and just keep cruising after it loses transmission signal. So be very careful there. Now your PID tuning, this thing comes from the factory. I don't know if you can see this here, but it's set to 70, 70, and 50. These are pretty high roll rates. So it's really gonna roll on a dime as you do a roll, or if you do a forward pitch or a backflip, it's gonna flip super fast. Yaw's at about 50, and yaw's not as big of a deal as roll and pitch, but it will turn super fast on these settings from the factory, so no big deal there. It will be nicely tuned. And for the receiver, I can go ahead and turn that on for you. We can plug a battery in. Once I plug the battery in, you're going to see these sticks move. Okay, now that we're plugged in, I can check my channels. Roll is on the right channel. Pitch is working. My yaw is working. So the way you arm this one, by the way, guys, is you yaw stick all the way to the right, and that arms it. Yaw stick all the way to the left, disarms it. You hear it beep. And that buzzer is quite loud, which is really nice because this thing is really hard to find in the field. If you crash it in tall grass, it's extremely hard to find because it's so little. And I can test that my switches are working. I am in aux 2 there. I have 3-position switch set up to that. So you can set your SB switch. Okay, I'm just gonna turn this off. Now you can set your SB switch on your Tyrannus to your aux 2, and that way you can have a 3-position switch for your modes. That's the switch that will control your modes. And here we have the modes set up: angle, horizon, and air mode. It does actually fly with air mode. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a freestyle quad by any means, but it will float for a little bit once it's up in the air and it's in air mode and you go inverted. It will give you a little more time to flip back over to level. So that's pretty cool that this thing can run air mode. I do like that a lot. Adjustments, and we can check out the current version of Clean Flight, typing in version down here in the CLI. And I have February 19th, 2016 on there. That's what came on mine. So that's running NAS 1.12. So pretty cool. It's fairly new. It does have air mode and all that other cool stuff on there, the new fail-safe setup. And if you need to, you can change in your port configuration here, but for the most part, we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and show you some flight footage. I will say that the flight footage was recorded on my Fat Shark DVRs, so it's not the best resolution in the world, but it's going to give you some idea how fast it is and how fun it is to fly. So enjoy the flight footage, guys. Thanks again for tuning in and watching the Drone Camps channel.